Hello everyone, I am Maro, and today I want to talk about game development. Why the AAA games, such as Diablo, in this case, of comparison, will never be able to reach the high quality of games like Path of Exile and Last Epoch. Now, before we continue, a disclaimer. When I say high quality, I do not mean texture fidelity or how good something looks, but the quality of the core gameplay that you are getting. The AAA games these days are plagued by something that is everywhere: capitalism. Now, love it or hate it, it's there, and you can't do anything about it. You may ask, how does that affect the game industry and especially the AAA? Pretty happy to tell you. What happens is like any other job. If you're working in a big public traded company, what happens is the games are not about being games anymore. It is not about being a hit, hitting Metacritic scores, or whatever it was in the past. Now, when you're making games and you're aiming them to be live service games, they have figured out patterns of how they can determine if a game is successful. And how they do that? They get the sales from the battle passes, and they also get the engagement time that they want to take from each person playing their game to continue following that game. Quarterly reports, 4 seasons, nothing crazy. This happens in many games, and if anything, sometimes the games go even crazier, and they have like new season every 2 months. So I think the quarterly update is not that big of a deal. It's fine, but what problem creates is that everything is about you working. When I was working in a call center, you had to have specific goals to hit. They didn't care if you did your job properly unless there was a complaint. And complaint big enough for them to deduct points from you. So if you could half-ass your job and gamify it a little bit, you could do it just fine and be the top performer in the company. Now, this you may say has nothing to do with this, but I would say it has everything to do with this. Because the way the gaming industry works now in these big companies, it's not about you releasing a game and being a success and maybe you get a bonus. It's not about that anymore. It's about consistently trying to get the number that they're looking for. And you're not trying to just make a game. You're trying to make a game while you have a boss of your department being happy and the boss of his bigger department being happy, and then another boss, and then the marketing team, and then Bobby and all the investors seeing the hard numbers. That is the reality of any company, any public traded company that offers services. They don't care if you do your job. They don't care if you treat it as 9 to 5, love it or hate it, you're there, you're working. And that is what I want to expand into this mystical disbelief that people have that somehow game developers love their job. I can tell you that yes, I would love to work into specific projects. But if I needed work, I will take work. Even though I would rather take game work over working in a software that I just don't care about, or some government job that is like whatever, you just chill and do nothing all day. I don't aspire to do any of that. I would rather take a game project that I'm not really interested in just to keep in the loop of being in the game industry. Now, what that leads to? When you have a big company, you have so many cooks inside, and as I said, many departments, the bigger the company, the harder it is to develop a specific ideal vision. Why this company, such as Blizzard, was able to produce bangers before, and people were not really thinking about when they're gonna fail, but they were thinking, when is the next amazing game? Because specific people were working on these games that unfortunately most of them are not anymore there. It is pretty visible when you try to see so many older staff leaving the company. Many may think this is good because it was just the weirdos that they were abusing their power and all of that shit. Yes, maybe some were, but many weren't. Many left for reasons, or maybe because their career couldn't advance. They were getting way better money in some other studio, and all those people left. If you've seen like some big figures like Ghost Crawler, he left from there, went to Riot Games. So you have to understand, even though people were passionate about some projects, because we can't look, you won't bother looking at all the credit rolls to see how many people match from one side to the other to see if that's actually the problem. But it's pretty obvious when the people on camera changing all the time, right? Now, specifically for Diablo 4, there were not that many anyway in the camera, so it's not a big deal. But the point is that people working in such big companies most likely will treat their job as a job. They did not go to Blizzard just to be, for example, art direction in Diablo 4. Although the art direction in the game is amazing and the level design is spectacular, and everything that has to do with art and graphics and textures, very good job. And that was the facade in all this game, that it was complete. Because they had the campaign, they had the animations, they had the voices, they had the cinematics. Well, not that many cinematics actually, but they had some. And it felt complete. But I don't want to say it, but if you really think about it, if this game didn't have the name Diablo 4, which game would you say it is? You would say it's Wolsen. Because Wolsen got so hard memed on by diehard ARPG fans that it had really nice campaign and then nothing. And what Diablo has, exactly the same. You had the campaign and then just some bullshit. And one boss on the end for the people that wanted to go 100 level. Yeah. If we are being real, you have to understand that it's that bad, right? And Wolsen got heavily memed for years. And I don't think it has improved really anyway itself. Now, I don't think that is going to be the same for Diablo 4. But the point is that when you have AAA games, you cannot really compare the passion of the staff for AAA games to a tight-knit team that care about what they're doing, even though they may not make stable income or anything like that. The reality is that's how the degenerate game development always was. You didn't really care about the money, you cared about what you will put out there. And if it worked, great, you had payment. And such projects now with the indie games, such as completely passion driven, like Path of Exile, Last Epoch, Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring. Of course, the two last I said were from kind of bigger companies, and some had really big publishers behind them and already really good reputation. But that doesn't have anything to do with this, because the reputation is gained because of the spectacular track record. Both of them, Larian Studio and From Software, they have been delivering bangers for a long time now. And that is the reason when they have such a small team, all of those studios that I mentioned, that they work all their energy into specific projects. They don't let themselves be fooled into making something they don't want to. And that is the big difference, that the people in Blizzard, even if they were the biggest Diablo fans, they can't control that. They really can't. You can't control such a big public traded organization because you want to make a nice game. No. You have to do as the boss of the boss of the boss tells you, that is how we work here. And that is why, even though you can see even in World of Warcraft, they do some really good things, and then suddenly, poof, you get like the hit, the slap in the face. But you don't understand what even happened. Why do you bring me this stupid monetization in the game now? You just did so good. Why? But it's because they can't control it. It's the truth. They can't control it and do what they want, the developers. The developers just develop the game. The marketing team will have to figure out ways to bring people back to the new expansion and to the new patch and to the new thing. And the investors will want more money. If the game doesn't generate money, it will die. Have you seen any of these live service games? Gundam, that new game that tried to copy Overwatch? Well, Overwatch is dead. Guess what? The Gundam game announced closure. All the whales that played that game suddenly lose all their things, and now they will have nothing. So we live in a very weird state at the moment, that so many things can look okay and then go bad. And these companies that will put passion above greed and numbers and anything else, when you hear Chris say that we hope to have steadily 10,000 players, that is not a statement of greed. Of course, they will aspire to get the most if they can. But when they have a baseline to keep as a benchmark and say this is fine, we can sustain ourselves as long as it's here without any investors, that is what separates developers that just work as a job and don't care what's happening, may not care about the game, they just did their bit, they're in the credits, move to the next job. Because the reality of game development is that as well. You are expandable. You may be in a game and then they don't need as many people and you're off. Or you are stayed for too long inside, they can't upgrade you into any other position, you are off. That is how it works. And people may not find it ideal, but it's really hard to compete in this stage. And that is why you see so many new people going indie. There's so many more tools that they can be creative and not just constrain themselves about making interactive movies, walking simulators, and something that looks amazing and people will only play once. Those are the fundamental differences between people that work for a work and people that work mostly in smaller, tighter teams that work for passion, and hopefully they will get some money as well. And of course, the latter is not the healthiest thing in the world, especially if you have a family. I'm not saying that you should do that, but it's proven again and again and again that this is how the good games are being created, and that's how it was always the case. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it, and maybe tell me why in the comments. If you enjoy my content, subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a great day.